Thank our sponsors, Spreads.ca. It's a First Nations casino and sportsbook. And for the hockey coming up, they're having a contest called Cherry Picks. So go on Spreads.ca. It's good to the 11th, and you can win up to $5,000. So they're all excited about hockey coming back because tough having a sports book this year without the thing. So
it's a funny thing you're talking there. Basketball looks like it's a practice, and I figured out why. They had all the people sitting around, right next to the court.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us some more. I love, I like this. It's Canadian money and it's Canadian.
They're Canadian. It's tailored towards Canadians because all the other sports bets you got to bet U.S. bucks. You can get killed on
that conversion.
Yeah, conversion rate.
And we're having fun, eh?
So and the good thing is that like if you want to go on the casino side because you have a casino, you can play 50-cent blackjack, which sometimes you just want to play. You don't want to be playing $5 a hand. And then you can bet minimum. You can bet $1 on the games, which is always fun. Like yesterday, I bet on Tampa Bay winning. So Spreads.ca, they have a contest up to January 11th, Cherry Pick, and if you log in and deposit some money, you can win up to $5,000. So.
Let me ask Tim. I know, Tim, you have, some of the questions the press asks the players and the coaches is so obvious, but we were talking about, you have a top 3 of some of the stupidest questions that were ever put to guys on TV.
Yeah, I think the first one, and you and I have talked about it over and over, Scott Oak with Redden.
Oh, yeah, Mike Redden, yeah.
Redden, I think it ruined his career. Yeah. And basically, long story short, it was an overtime, it was a 2-on-1. And the guy with the puck, Redden ran with the guy with the puck, and the guy just sifted it over and walked in.
I forget. But
they scored. I forget who they were playing. And it was Redden's fault. But he took a chance. 18,000 people are pointing him, your fault. So Scott Oak interviews him right after the game, again, still sweat pouring
out on the ice.
And he's sweat pouring off him. And he goes, well, if you ran, why did you run at him? And Redden goes, I don't know. Well, if you just stayed in the middle, he wouldn't have been able to pass the puck. Yeah, I know. Well, why did you? And he goes, well, I don't know. I haven't looked at. Well, we got it right here. Let's take a look at it. Yeah. And you could just see him shrinking.
I have to laugh. Scott Oak used to say, "I'm the voice of doom."
Yeah,
because he always used to get the loser all the time. Guys that lose all the time.
And then the second one was I remember Stan Jonathan being interviewed a long time ago, and so the lady walked up and says, we got Stan Jonathan of the 1970 Boston Bruins. She stands there, and he goes, and there was a Bruins reporter, and she goes, so Stan, you were one of the goons back then. Stan kind of looked there, goes,
I never had a goon.
Gee, I had 27 goals. I scored a hat trick in the playoffs. He said, he goes, we didn't have any goons. We all could play. And
they all had 20-some goals.
Yeah, so anyway, that was one that, again, Stan kind of looked. But the worst of all was somebody in New Jersey was interviewing Paul Coffey, and I think he was with Pittsburgh at the time. And the lady said, well, we're here with Paul Coffey, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and she goes, no, Paul, the knock on you is you have no heart.
Yeah.
It was like somebody took a frying pan and hit him over the head. And he looks and he goes, geez, I've won 6 Stanley Cups. I'm the leading scoring defenseman in the history of hockey.
She didn't know.
I don't know about that. I just think, but.
No heart. Well, I can. Funny you mentioned no heart. I remember when you talk about no heart. I remember I was at an all-star banquet. I didn't guess an all-star. I know what it was we had to go to banquets all the time, or dinners, or whatever you wanted to call them. All the press and everything, and the players and stuff like that. And I was sitting at the table, and it was just so boring. And I used to have a bad habit of playing with the spoons. Like I put one spoon on the other, and I don't know how. I didn't know I was doing it. I remember Bob Cole grabbed it and just fired them down the hall. Everybody looked over. And I remember Orville Tessier at that banquet, or whatever you want to call it. It was a luncheon. I guess it was a luncheon. That's what they call it, a luncheon. And he was nominated for Coach of the Year in Chicago. And he said, and I'm not paying any attention. He said, well, I don't think that's a big deal being nominated. He didn't like me, eh? And he says, Don Cherry won Coach of the Year, so what? Something like that. And everybody looks at me and what is, I just shrugged my shoulders. So I sat in the weeds, and no sense in saying anything bad about him then. And I remember they were in Edmonton playing Chicago, and they were flying back, and the pilot said, we're flying over Minneapolis. This is where they have the famous Mayo Clinic, the first heart transplant or something. And he said to one of the reporters, he said, I think I'll stop and see if they got any heart. Now, you can say anything you want about players are stupid, talent, but don't say they don't have heart. So So I come on and I said, Hockey Night in Canada. I said, they'll lose to Edmonton, will beat them in it. You watch. I said, they'll beat Edmonton, will beat them. And I said, he'll stand, and as they skated off, I said, nobody will shake his hand. And by God, we kept the camera on him. Now the guy shook his hand, because you can say anything you want, as I said before. Anything at all. When you say a guy doesn't have heart, that's the end. And one more thing I got to say, and I'm in deep with Orville.
Because you played with him, didn't you?
I played in junior with him.
Junior? It goes way back.
Yeah. I don't know why. I guess I must have said something. So we're playing. We're playing Cleveland, and Punch Imlach is the coach.
So this is in junior. This is in Springfield, the American
League. In Springfield. It's our first game, very first game, or I think it was around the first game. And Chavetz, who used to call him Destroyer. I mean, he could really hit. I mean, and he drove him into the board. I remember that play. He drove him into the boards. So it was a good hit. It was a good rough hit. So we're in the dressing room, and Orville starts taking off his equipment. He said, we didn't know him. He just come from the Quebec League. And Punch Imlach was the coach. And we always thought, well, if some guys take off all their equipment and put it back on again.
Like this is between the first and second.
Yeah.
But mostly it's goalies, isn't it, that do that?
Yeah, well, Gary Smith used to do it all the time. There's a goalie. He used to call him Max. But anyhow, he started taking off his equipment. So Punch comes in with 10 minutes to go, before we go on. He said, what are you doing? He says, hurry up, get your equipment on. He said, I'm not playing in this league. It was the end of the first period. He says, no, I'm not playing in this league. He says, I'm going back to Quebec League. And he did. And never played in the American League again, I don't think. And Punch looked at us Punch came from the Quebec League, and he was and Orville could really score. And in the warm-ups, he'd say, I'd hit that post, I'll hit that post, and he could do it.
So how did Punch Imlach come from the Quebec League?
He just come out. He took over for the Boston Bruins. He was in the Boston Bruins organization before he went to Toronto.
He took over from your nemesis there, Eddie Shore, right?
Yeah, he took over, and we had a great team. We had a good team. We had one of those goalies. I shouldn't say. Well, anyhow, that if you were losing 3-2, and you tied it up, and he was playing lousy. If you tied it up, he'd play lousy. If you were losing 4-3, he'd be playing great. If you tied it up, you knew one was going to go in. Anyhow, we're off on an off time. So Punch, I remember. Now we're talking about Punch. We talk about Punch sometime. Because I get a lot of stories on Punch. So anyhow,